Ambassador, the open letter sent from your country to South Korea earlier this month talks about foreign forces being wholly to blame for the tragic and disgraceful history of the Korean nation. I take it you mean American forces. Can there be peace on the Korean peninsula as long as American forces remain in the south, in your opinion?
Well, as long as the United States obstructs the reunification of the country, as well as makes the Korean peninsula tense, it is not helpful, for the United States to remain in South Korea. As you know, the Korean nation is a homogeneous nation with the same blood, which has lived for centuries, for a long time, creating one culture and one nation. But it has been split and divided by the United States, and United States, creates the station tense all the time by bringing in the military equipment and obstructs the peace and security on the Korean peninsula by pursuing the hostile policy and particularly by threatening the deep-held Korea with nuclear weapons. So I don't think the United States is helpful unless it abandons its hostile policy against the deep-held Korea and gives up the military threat, whether it is conventional or whether it is nuclear.
But of course, South Korea and the United States will see your country as the threat. That's the problem. I mean, you could work together.
Well, it is the unilateral insistence, Well, if you look into the Korean peninsula, the main question is nuclear issue, all right? Well, of course, deep-held Korea is, we have a nuclear deterrent, but you should understand why the deep-held Korea had chosen the way of having a nuclear deterrent. Deep-held Korea has been under the nuclear threat by the United States from the early 1950s. During the war in the 1950s, the United States threatened that they would use nuclear bombs. And in 1950s, they began to bring all the nuclear weapons into South Korea. And you remember all the successive presidents of the United States claimed that they would use all options in case of a contingency on the Korean peninsula, not excluding the nuclear weapons. This is their policy. And United States, in action, they staged nuclear war exercises annually against the deep-held Korea. So deep-held Korea had no option but to have the nuclear deterrent in order to defend the sovereignty of the country and in order to save the security and peace on the Korean peninsula, as well as the lives of the people. So ours is just, and their insistence is wrong. If there is no nuclear threat, is not available from the United States, then and also the hostile policy of the United States is withdrawn, then it is another matter.
So if the United States removed the nuclear threat, or at least the nuclear threat as your country sees it, Pyongyang would be willing to denuclearize? It'd be willing to get rid of its nuclear weapons, would it?
Well, if the United States gives up its hostile policy against the deep-held Korea and does not threaten the deep-held Korea with nuclear weapons, then the relations between the two countries could become normalized. In that case, all the issues can be resolved smoothly. I mean, when I say all the issues, means all the issues concerned by each side will be solved smoothly.
But America says that if they are going to enter talks again, going to resume the nuclear talks, then your country must stop producing more nuclear weapons. Is your country prepared to do that in order to take the first step towards talks?
Well, you are saying about the preconditions put forward by the United States. United States wants the deep-held Korea to do action, to fulfill its obligation first. In action, they said, right? They asked us to show the sincerity, which we all the time show the sincerity, but we cannot, perform our obligations first. As you remember, September 19th joint statement, which was agreed upon in the six-party talks, predicted, pinpoints that United States commitment to abandon the hostile policy towards the deep-held Korea, and they committed that they do not threaten the deep-held Korea by military action, whether it is conventional or nuclear war. They didn't perform their own obligations, but they want deep-held Korea to fulfill our obligations first. This is a precondition. So the six-party talks they are talking about the resumption of the six-party talks. They said in order for the six-party talks to be resumed, deep-held Korea should move first, as you said. But this is a dialogue. We are dialogue partners, and dialogue partners should do what they have committed already. United States didn't do anything what they should do, while demanding deep-held Korea should do first. So it is unreasonable. That is why we cannot accept that one.
Much of this open letter is preempting an event that will happen next month in February. Mm-hmm. The joint military exercises between the south of the peninsula, South Korea, and the United States.
Yes.
If those exercises go ahead, will North Korea respond? And
how? I do not like it is wise to predict the consequence of the event, right? So it is not a matter of urgency. What is important is that the root cause of the tension should be removed. This is more important. We have to think about how to remove the cause of the tension on the Korean Peninsula.
But these are annual exercises, aren't they? They happen every year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No weapons are being fired towards your country, so there's no reason to assume that they'll be fired this year.
They continued the military exercises under the pretext of an annual and it is decisive nature sort of thing. But if you look into the scale and contents of the military exercises they are planning to stage, you can understand this is just for aggression against the deep-held Korea. Hundreds of thousands of troops are scheduled to mobilize the troops. The U.S. troops in South Korea, of course, and the South Korean military, as well as the U.S. troops that are stationing in the mainland, Pacific, and in Japan. All of them are scheduled to involved in that military exercises. And if you look into the last year's Key Resolve and Eagle Fowl military exercises, they brought in nuclear equipments, including strategic bombers,
B-52 bombers.
Yeah, and then the stealthy strategic fighters, B-2, and as well as the nuclear submarines. And even they flew the strategic bombers over the Korean Peninsula, and they practiced even bombing nuclear bombs on the territory of the deep-held Korea.
But your country practiced the invasion of an airport only a couple of days ago.
Invasion of the... I beg your pardon?
There was a military exercise in your country a couple of days ago.
Well, what we are talking about is not ordinary military exercises, right? We are making an issue of the aggression the military exercise for aggression, which was conducted in collusion with the foreign forces. That is why the proposal, the important proposal made by the National Defense Commission said that if what they call coordination and cooperation are so precious and valuable for the South Korean authorities, it would be better to conduct the military exercises in a secluded land or in the United States, far away from the territory and land air of DPR Korea. We are not opposing this, ordinary, military exercises, but military exercises to invade the DPR Korea.
So there is some indication that this year America might not send B-52 bombers. It might not send an aircraft carrier or a nuclear submarine, if it does, to take part in the exercises. If it doesn't send those pieces of equipment, is that acceptable?
No.
Is that a step forward?
We already received the information. They made already public that the military units that are scheduled to participate in the joint military exercises are already allocated the targets. The targets are the main subjects of the DPR Korea. And even what they call the landing operation, codenamed Sangyeong, they said the Sangyeong landing operation's purpose is to capture the capital, Pyongyang. So this is a very aggressive nature. That is why we called it military exercises of aggression against the DPR Korea. And it is just a pretext for nuclear attack on the DPR Korea.
But you've blamed the United States' presence for being a barrier to peace and reunification of the peninsula. These military exercises are carried out by the Americans and by the South Koreans, which suggests that there are at least some people in the south of the peninsula who are opposed to reunification.
That is why the National Defense Commission made a very important proposal to make a favorable climate for improved North-South relations. It proposed halting all acts of slandering the other side. In this regard, we officially proposed South Korea to stop all acts of slandering from the date of 30th, that is the day before the Lunar New Year. And at the same time, we proposed halting all acts of aggression for securing peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. And number 3, we proposed, to take a practical measure to prevent the Korean Peninsula to be inflicted upon, by the nuclear disaster.
If you're really serious, and you're a diplomat,
yes,
you have to look at the long game.
Yeah.
If you're really serious, you will turn a blind eye. You will ignore the military exercises if they go on because of the greater good in the long term.
What do you mean, the exercises?
Well, you have said, Pyongyang has said, you will halt acts of slander,
yes,
and military aggression.
Yes.
But it seems to me that the condition is that the military exercises next month don't go ahead. But as a diplomat, you must recognise that if the military exercises do go ahead, it might be worthwhile, your country, just allowing them to go ahead for the long-term good.
Well, our important proposals made by the National Defense Commission is not for the camouflaged peace initiative. It is the expression of sincerity towards the, making the reconciled and cooperative and improve the relations between the North and South. The North-South relations is very important in terms of, creating a good atmosphere and creating a good situations in Asia and Pacific. When the North-South relations is bad, the situations in Pacific is affected and the rest of the world. That is why the experts in many countries are now expressing grave concern at the pending military exercises joint military exercises by the United States and South Korea, codenamed, Key Resolve and Foul Eagle. They said it will bring about only tension on the Korean Peninsula, which is not favorable for not only the Korean Peninsula, but the Asia and Pacific and the rest of the world. And that is why, our respected leader, in his new address, clarified it, made it clear that it is a high time to put an end to the confrontation between the North and South. And he's particularly said that, we would join hands with anybody who opts to give priority to nation and who wishes for reunification, regardless of his or her past, and will strive more for better relations between the North and South. So it is high time the South Korea to stop or to cancel the military exercises, and it is advisable for the international community to try hard to prevent such a kind of dangerous military exercises, which is no good for anybody and which is undesired by anybody.
Would you allow United Nations weapons inspectors into the country to inspect your nuclear plants?
Well,
some transparency.
You should understand that we have, as I told you, our nuclear deterrent is not to strike the others. It is not to strike others. It is a means of instrument for the prevention of a nuclear war on the Korean Peninsula. And as for the inspection of the nuclear facilities, the plants in the deep South Korea is another question. It was discussed in the six-party talks before, but six-party talks has stopped to function. So, IAEA or international community has no reason to come to the deep South Korea for inspection, and we have no right and no obligation to show our nuclear activities to them.
Just one more question on the relations between North and South Korea. South Korea has proposed family reunions, and probably some point in the middle of February. Is that something that North Korea will accept? Is that something North Korea will take part in?
Well, as a matter of fact, it is the deep South Korea's initiative to arrange the meeting of the separated families and the relatives. The Central Committee of the Red Cross Society of the deep South Korea proposed to arrange that reunion, which was reunion of the separate families, which was suspended last year due to the unfavorable conditions and situations, by the South Korea. But we said that it under the framework or in order to implement the practical measures set forth by the National Defense Commission through the crucial proposal, Red Cross Society said that we are prepared to arrange we proposed the South Korean Red Cross Society to arrange the reunion of the separate families. And it said that, the timing would be the time after the Lunar New Year, when the cold weather turns warm for the elders, all right? And it designated that the place as, Kumgangsan Resort, which was agreed upon by the North and South before. And as for the practical and exact date, could be exchanged and discussed between the two sides. So I think around,
But your country will be a part of it.
Yeah, they are now working on that.
I want to move on to there's other topics I want to talk about, particularly something that has been in the news in this country and elsewhere a lot over the last couple of months, and that is the execution of Kim Jong-un's uncle, Jang Song-taek. What did he do wrong?
Well, Jang Song-taek did lots of crimes. He he made the anti-party, anti-government crimes, and as well as he abused his power in hindering the national economy and hindering the efforts for national economy and for improving the people's living standards. And he made lots of corruption life. He spent 4.6 million euro in 2009 all alone. But so he made tremendous crimes against the government, against the people, against the country. So the enlarged meeting of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea made an issue of him. Actually, our party pardoned him on several occasions when he made when he made wrongdoings in the past. But this time, his crimes is beyond the level. It's beyond the red line.
And so he was executed.
So the enlarged meeting of the party handed over to the legal system. So the special military court of the Ministry of State Security put him on the trial. He confessed what he did wrong. And according to the Article 60 of the Criminal Code of the DPR Korea, he was executed.
How?
According to the laws by the criminal court, he was sentenced to death.
But how was he executed? Because there has been, some very wild reports that he might have been fed to the dogs.
No.
Can you clear it up? How was he executed? Was he shot?
Well, he was shot to death.
And what about his family?
Well, the mass media, particularly the South Korean and Japanese mass media, which are against the DPR Korea in propaganda, spread such kind of rumors. His families and many people are executed, sort of thing. This is the political propaganda by our enemies.
So his family have not been executed.
I think that's fabricated report does not deserve my comment.
They are alive. He was the one who should be punished. And
I know he was punished.
Opinion,
I know he was punished. But his family is punished or not, I don't know.
I just wonder that for everything that he did wrong, he is your leader, Kim Jong-un's uncle, was his uncle. He was his mentor, we're led to believe.
He was not mentor.
What does it say about your leader's authority that
the South Korea and Japan described him as a reformist or regent, or you said mentor sort of thing. But he was not that kind of person. He was not that kind of guy. He was, of course, in a high position, but he abused the power. But our punishment, is applied to anybody, regardless of his high official position or low position. Law is the same. Law is one, and it's applied in the same manner to anybody.
It's very extreme punishment, though, for those of us living in this country. You've lived in this country for a number of years. It is an extreme form of punishment.
Well, each country has its own system. I know the European Union, as well as some European countries, does not have a penalty system, death penalty system. They are opposed to. But still, there are many countries that use the death penalty. It's up to them. It's all the same. Each country has a different legal system, and we have a legal system. So if the crimes are so high and treason, then he should be punished, regardless of who he is.
And you talk about it doesn't matter whether you're at the top of society or at the bottom of society in your country.
Yes.
There is a legal system to punish.
Yes.
That legal system involves sentencing people to labour camps.
Well, those guys who made the wrong against the government, needs to be punished. But we don't have labor camps. Actually, we have education camps, all right? Not camps, the education place. But the United States and South Korea, Japan, and the other Western countries say that we have labor camps. But that is not true.
But you won't allow journalists from outside to explore the country for themselves, to see whether or not there are camps or not camps.
Well,
so how I find it hard to know how you're expecting the outside world to believe this.
We don't have labor camps. How can we introduce or how can we allow the journalists to go and see the labor camps?
But if a journalist from your country came to London, they could get a train to Scotland or Wales, they could go wherever they pleased.
Yes.
That wouldn't be the case for me.
No, what I'm saying is that if the journalist wants to conform, what they call conform or investigate whether there is a labor camps as indicated by the others, this is not the way for journalists to come and visit. Journalists, as you know, is the pioneers in promoting the understanding between the two countries by showing what is going on there or what is going on there, here and there, right? So it is not moral for journalists to use, to serve as a political purpose.
One man who is in your has been through your judicial system, is in prison at the moment in your country, is the American Kenneth Bae.
Bae.
Yeah.
Kenneth Bae, yes.
There was a press conference very recently that he was at. Is that a step towards his freedom?
Well, he himself called for press conference, and he said that in recent days some misinformation are spread in regard with him. He said that some mass media linked him, saying that DPR Korea is a human rights abuser, and Kenneth Bae was abused and hard treated by the DPRK. So he called for the conference and made it correct. He said that, the Vice President of the United States said he's not made a crime against DPRK, he's not guilty. And his own sister also said he's not guilty. So he said that he already informed the government of the United States and his family that he did something wrong. He made crimes against DPR Korea, but he's now, receiving fair treatment, though he spent 15 months in Pyongyang. And when he's sick, he received the medical treatment. And, he was given an access to Swiss embassy, which represents the United States on a consular issue. He said this is normal going on. But if the mass media and some countries are spreading such kind of misinformation, it would make it more difficult, he said that. So he said, please calm down, I'm okay. I'm a criminal, I'm serving, but he said he pleaded for efforts.
Will he be
more
released?
Efforts by the government of the United States and his family for his release. But when you asked whether he's released or not, he would be released when he finished his serve. He was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. So when he finished his term, according to the law, why not? There's no reason not to release him.
So he's doing hard labor?
Not really hard labor. He's receiving medical treatment now.
But he was sentenced to 15 years hard labor.
Well,
yes, like
course.
A labor camp.
Yes, not really labor camp. We don't have a labor camp. He was sentenced to hard labor, of course. But I don't know the level of the what extent or level of the hard labor, what the hard labor is about. But hard labor, not
he
ordinary labor.
He pleaded for his country to do more to secure his release.
He said
that would suggest
yeah.
that there is a possibility he could be released early, before his 15 years, and a suggestion that perhaps your country is open to some negotiation.
Well, you know, legal system, you know, I cannot say about legal system. I cannot interfere in the, you know, legal system. When the law or when the judgment is done, then it's done. But sometimes there is occasions for pardon, but I don't know, and I cannot predict that Kenneth Bae will be pardoned or not. He should finish his term. That is all, according to the crimes, in accordance with the crimes what he made against the Deep Korea.
Just finally, I want to return to the open letter and to the New Year's address, which calls for peace on the peninsula, but of course, signs of aggression to halt. Can you put a timescale on any of this? Can you suggest how long it might take for, well, reunification in your eyes, or perhaps peace in other people's eyes?
Well, it is the consistent policy of the government of DPR Korea, you know, to improve the, you know, inter-Korean relations and to develop the, you know, reconciliation and cooperation between the North and South. Well, when the whole Korean peninsula, whether they are in the North and South, are firmly united in terms of wishing for reunification and striving for early reunification, the day of reunification will come earlier, I think. So for this, the proposal, the important proposal made by the National Defense Commission is very important in that regard. You know, our respected leader, Marshal Kim Jong-un, made a bold proposal that we would join hands with anyone who if I repeat, we would join hands with anyone who opts to give a priority to the nation and who wishes for reunification, regardless of its past or his or her past. You know, this is very important. You know, if all the Korean nation is united, reconciled, cooperated, you know, then the reunification would come, you know, earlier. You know, as a matter of fact, you know, we have the joint declaration between the North and South. As you know, June 16 joint declaration and October 4 joint declaration between the North and South, which was made at the summit level between the two sides. It shows the way and means for national reunification. So this is the standpoint. I mean, that this is the principles. This is the banner of reunification for North and South to follow.
And finally, if the military exercises go ahead with the United States and South Korea,
yes, will
your country retaliate?
Well, as I told you, you know, since our National Defense Commission made very important proposals to halt all acts of military actions hostile against the other, it's very important to implement that then, right? So, I don't think, you know, it is natural to predict what the consequences would be, you know.
But you've said that you want to halt all military action, and so the inference from that, what I would learn from that, is that even if the exercises go ahead, well, you will keep your word.
You know, the National Defense Commission made a strong, you know, and important proposals, and following that, the National Defense Commission sent an open letter again, urging the South Korea to stop all the acts of slandering, to stop all acts of hostile military action. So let us see what they respond. So before they respond, you know, of course their initial response is very negative, but let us wait and see. I cannot say here the consequences of the consequences of military actions, going ahead.